Hey everyone. For those who've been with us all morning, thank you and welcome back to Creative Futures, past and present. For those who are joining us just now, welcome to today's sort of festival of like amazing ideas and work. My name is Will Taylor. I am your host for today. I am a black male in his early 30s wearing a soft pink satin durag. I have a short black beard. I'm wearing black rimmed glasses and a pair of black overhead headphones. I'm in a room with a lovely painting of Jean-Michel Basquiat in the background. And I'm joined today by Rachel Jones. Rachel is a British Sign Language interpreter. Her pronouns are she, her, and she's a mixed race woman in her early 30s. She's wearing a black t-shirt and her hair is red and tied up. And she's sitting in front of a white wall at home. I'm also joined by Emily Quigley, another British Sign Language interpreter. Emily's pronouns are she, her. She's a white woman in her early 30s and wearing a black t-shirt. Her hair is brown and curly. She's wearing black framed glasses and she's sitting at her desk with a light blue wall behind her. Well, firstly, my heart, that previous panel was just absolutely incredible, and thank you so much. I'm so fond of everybody that was there, and the prompts and reflections in the chat were just wonderful to watch as well. Up next on the main stage, we have a panel chaired by Jon Dovey, and you all already know how I feel about him. If you're joining us, I mean, just what a G, straight up. And the panel is introducing the digital placemaking prototypes. After these panels, we'll be going on break for a lunch from 1 p.m. So be back here at 2 p.m. and I hope you enjoy some sunshine and enjoy the panel coming up.
Thanks very much, Will. Cool. So, yeah, as Will said, my name is Jon Dovey. I'm a white male in his mid-60s wearing a white shirt with thick black rimmed spectacles in a room that looks a bit like a study with books along one wall and some pictures behind me. I have a greying beard. So digital placemaking, what's it all about? Why did we come up with this idea? Where's it come from? So the previous panel was talking a bit about urban design and the way that urban design could become more inclusive and more sensitive to certain kinds of issues around safety, vulnerability, and particularly focusing around co-design. So that very much represents a lot of the conversations that we had in the research cohort for this program. And it comes out of, the era historically where place and technology have become more and more intimately linked through things like Google Maps and the way that space and the places that we live in have digital second lives and other lives. So I've recently been getting an invitation that pops up on my phone that asks me to rate this place. Rate this place. Every time I see it, I think, why would I do that? Yeah, I like my backyard and I love my park and the health centre is really important to me, but rate that place and give that information to Google, who want me to share my experience and give it a star rating so that they can quantify the whole world to sell me more stuff that I didn't want in the first place. Surely we could do better than that. That was the fundamental question that we set out to answer in the Digital Placemaking Pathfinder. How can we use the new possibilities of digital mapping to make all kinds of great content available to people in their city regions? How can we, to quote one of the films you're about to see, relocalize the internet? In the R&D fellowship program, we wrote this what if as a way of trying to imagine this better way from one of our workshops. It was a kind of piece of speculative fiction that we worked on together. What if there was a place I could check into that was a map of my city and my neighborhood that was permanently updating with user contributions? What if when I checked in at the start of my day, I saw that there was an after-school sports club starting in the park that my kids would love, and at the same time, the allotment was holding a veg sale that I could pop into? What if whilst I was working this out, I noticed that the new development planned for near the school had posted its plans on the map, but they're now available in a 3D walkthrough that I could look at later that evening. It would be like having a local, live, updating place full of relevant stuff that was actually about my world. Over the course of my week, what if I also discovered that there's a new game being developed that uses the map that seems to be some kind of walk the city where you compete against one another in a fantasy world. Because it gets you out walking, I might decide to get together with some people from my gym and get involved. I'd also heard someone at the same time talking about how they developed a kind of messaging gift service where your friends or lovers could leave you messages that you could only discover on your regular routes through the city. I think this is amazing. You could have a whole layer of people's emotions and memories, an emotional map of the city. What if there was also this amazing thing that was like a filter across the whole map for health and well-being that allows you to see things like air quality, disabled access, public toilets, pharmacies that are open, and all that kind of really useful information. And this map could have a whole creative layer where story walks could be plotted with tales that are set in the place where you're walking. They could use sound and AR to create a whole new form of art, unlocking the different voices of the city. They could be the kind of place where people get to think about what kind of city they want to live in. Maybe some stories of hope that we need now more than ever. You could have a whole load of new kinds of stories from the new kinds of people that make up our cities. What if you developed such a map and people finished up checking it more than their timelines on social media? Maybe it'd be actually more useful in the end because it would be about the here and the now, what's happening right around me that I could reach out and touch, not the anonymous global nonsense that is so much of social media in my timeline. So that was a kind of a what if, a vision. So now let's go to the films and look at what the prototypes actually came up with when we got to that point in our pathfinding process.
City Idea are a design agency that designs public information infrastructure. Our goal is to improve people's understanding and experience of the city. PopMap is an experimental prototype that we developed in partnership with Calvium and Bristol City Council. The idea is to highlight cultural events that are going on in the city centre with a Bristol flavour. What we call relocalising the internet is a sort of antidote to the Californiaisation of everything. It's so that applications might get a chance to speak with a local voice about using hyperlocal information, about things that are of interest to people here.
You're able to filter by events in PopMap, and you're given a clock interface where you can set a time window and it will reveal the different cultural activities around you within that time period. The mapping is extremely accurate as it's drawn from aerial photography. It means you can highlight things like pedestrian space, steps, ramps, and accessible entrances. It also means you can route your journey through pedestrian space as opposed to centre lines of roads.
It was a great opportunity to collaborate with City ID so we could bring together our joint expertise in placemaking, us from the digital side of things and City ID from their experience in maps and wayfinding, to be able to kind of pool that shared understanding and realise something like PopMap was a great opportunity.
PopMap uses structured data in form of events and place information. This data is collated and geocoded from various sources. This data needs to be updated regularly to enable the front end to be kept alive and fresh. Throughout the project, we've worked with stakeholders, community groups and inclusivity experts. This has allowed us to make sure that the platform is accessible and is tailored to residents and people visiting for the first time.
rock and roll is so male-dominated. I feel I've always got a challenge that I'd like to kick against it, because rock and roll music is for everyone.
The Coach House was a hub of lots of people.
I know it because I came and recorded here. For me, it was like the beginning of a new world, because I didn't know about hip-hop, but I loved it. Jeff knew all about it.
The reason this place has got the status, the legendary status it has, is because, you know, so many crews came through here. You know, Wild Bunch came through.
I'm gonna come through.
At its heart, Stupid Cities is about the lived disabled experience of public space. A user experiences the work through the community workshops that we've run, very much a creative, playful, safe environment to talk about these issues, also in a non-digital format, so we can just write on maps, we can also do it remotely. The second part is engaging with a map. The map is a way of seeing and geolocating microaggressions, and specifically where they cluster. We classify the microaggressions by risk and by different temporary design or permanent design features. So there's a way of seeing where these things happen, and this provides kind of like what I call a weather map of a city. So where we have a lot of data in Bath, you could see that people have experienced a very high level of very dangerous microaggressions around a certain hotspot in Bath. And this may affect your journey. It may be a guide to you to say, this is an area I don't want to go, or I might want to avoid. My very small goal is to create a seed of a project that other people can take on in their cities all over the world and use this as a way of challenging the barriers that they experience that create disability, and to feel like they have allies using the internet and connecting through a community of worldwide activists. But this is also input to councils and planning, as in if there's really bad problems and people are having bad experiences, this map and this data is also something for them to look at and consider how they might reevaluate how they do public planning.
The Seven Saints of St. Paul's project, it began with portraits of 7 individuals that founded the 1968 St. Paul's Festival, and has now transformed into an amazing creative and digital placemaking project. When people come on the tours, they'll be able to actually visually see cultural elements, parts of the murals, animated. They'll be able to hear sound effects and the voices of some of the saints actually speaking about their work in their own words. And the goal for that is to actually have people feel deeply connected to the stories, the local stories, which is our shared history.
Well, my name is Roy Hackett, and I'm living around here for many years.
I liked the bird. On Barbara Dettering's one, I liked how the bird kind of came out of the wall and suddenly grew. It was amazing.
The way the text pops up, you know, in augmented reality is amazing. It really just brings the mural to life.
It reminds me of what a beautiful place St Paul's is, and it reminds me of what amazing people there are and how far we've come as different populations coming to live in St Paul's over the years. The app's fantastic, go and see them all, because it also helps you to understand and demystify a bit of this is city centre Bristol in all its glory, and I say glory purposefully. It is a fantastic place.
The collaboration between Boom Satsuma and Iconic Black Britons, it happened very organically. There is a lot of synergy between the two of us. We're very big on art, we're very big on education, and we're very big on representation. So immediately we just clicked, and we've just been working together for the best part of 5 years now. I think through this project, we were able to provide an immersive and creative experience that really represents the sense of community that this space and place actually has. And it's a nice way to invite people into this community also.
Great. So thanks very much for that. So 4 very different but linked projects looking at how we can actually activate the notion of digital placemaking in a slightly different way. I'm going to bring in some of the makers in those projects now. So we're going to be able to have a conversation with them and also take some questions from you. So I'd like to welcome the producers of those projects now to the stage. Hi, Michele. Hi, Ben. Hi, Carl. Hi, Joseph. So first of all, maybe we could just do some introductions, if that's okay. Michele, can we start with you, please?
Hello, everyone. My name is Michele Curtis, and I am the founder of the Seven Saints of St Paul's project.
And could you do your audio self-description as well, please?
My apologies. So I am a Black woman with a curly afro. I am wearing a black jumper, and I am against a white wall.
Thanks, Michele. Cal.
Hi, I'm Cal Jepps. I'm a senior designer for City ID working on PopMap project. I'm a white man in his 30s with short brown hair, dark glasses, and a check shirt.
Thanks, Cal. Ben.
Hello, my name is Ben Price. I'm the project manager for Everything's Music. I'm 31, I'm a white male, and I have got scruffy hair. Luckily, I've got a haircut coming up, and I'm against a grey blind. Not very exciting, unfortunately.
Thanks, Ben. And finally, Joseph Wilk.
Hi, yes, so I'm the creator of the Stupid Cities project. I'm a 40-year-old white male, messy hair, red flowery glasses, and a flowery shirt. And you can see into the mess that is my apartment right now.
Thanks, everyone. So what we're going to do now is talk about the stories of each of those projects and what people have learned and where people are going next with them. But we're also really open to having inputs from the audience who are watching today. So if you have questions or comments or things you want to raise with the producers now, start to put them into the chat, and we'll filter them through later in the conversation. Fantastic collection of projects, and I'm so thrilled and proud to see them all in the film version today. Am I right in thinking it's the first time you've seen all of the films together yourselves? What's just quickly some off the top of your head reaction to seeing them collectively, seeing them all together at once? You know, what was your feeling from that?
It's amazing what everyone's done, considering what we've kind of been through, I suppose, over the last year or so.
Yeah, thanks. Any other comments? Any other comments of your overall sort of sense of those projects?
I love how different each one is, and you can see all 4 of them combining into one app in the future, can't you?
Yeah.
I really like the. Sorry, Jon. I really like the community focus and the kind of like anti-big corporation style, and actually approaching it from the ground up. They all feel like they have that as part of them.
Yeah, Michele.
Yes, I echo everything that everyone else has said, and also how needed each project is. It's amazing that it's gone so long without anything being done, especially in terms of accessibility. With me, I also have a disability, and it is a nightmare navigating through the city streets. And I just think, in the history of the music and places and space, it's amazing. Really impressed with everybody's work.
Yeah, thanks for that, everyone. I was amazed when I saw them how close they were to the sort of visionary stuff that we were thinking about before. So my kind of that what if piece, you know, which was written a long time ago. I mean, it just seemed that somehow these pieces were doing that, and that's part of our process. I suppose that's the way that we try and make that happen. But I was really pleased to see. Michele, could you tell us the story of the Seven Saints AR project, and you know, where did you start from, and where did you get to?
Okay, so the Seven Saints of St. Paul's project started in 2015, and it was originally supposed to be a one-off exhibition to celebrate the upcoming 50th anniversary of St. Paul's Carnival. I quickly realized that because of its popularity, that more really needed to be done. I always knew that there was going to be a tech element, hence why there is an existing app at the moment. But we've received lots of requests to do guided tours. Now, the guided tours were supposed to be an hour long, and they were lasting anything between sort of like an hour and a half to 2 hours because of all the questions that the participants were asking. And so with Boomsat Sumo, we sat down and kind of thought, well, what else can we do to kind of reduce the time, but also make that experience immersive and community focused? And this opportunity came up with Bristol and Bath Creative R&D, which meant that we could add so many visual and audio elements without actually having to expand on the time of the tours. And so from that, it just really grew. And through the experience that we've had over the past year, we've actually really began to understand the possibilities through augmented reality. And there's so much more that we still need to do on the project. So inspiring.
Thanks very much, Michele. So in the end, you've got a demo that allows that you're running on your own iPads for now. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. So at the moment, there's 7 murals, and so through this project, we were able to augment 3 of the 7. So what we essentially have is a true prototype. So whilst people are still able to experience the full guided tour and learn the histories about all 7, only 3 are augmented. So our plan is to expand and augment all 7 eventually.
And for them to be used as part of the guided tour program.
Absolutely, yes, yes.
I mean, I should also say, I think something that's important in this project is that your co-producing partners, Boomsat Sumo, who did the production work with you on this, also learned something about how to embed AR production processes into their own workflow, which they hadn't done very much of before. So that was another important outcome, I think, for them. Would you agree? Is that true?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. So they were very much interested into expanding into kind of digital production. As I said, we've been working together for about 5 years, and they obviously knew what my long-term plans were for this project. I mean, immediately it was just trying to get these murals up and finished. And so because they knew they wanted to expand their business, it seemed that the Seven Saints of St. Paul's would be the perfect project for them to be able to expand on their skill set and their business in terms of expanding from doing production, sort of film, drama, etc., into kind of the digital space.
Yeah, exactly. So a bit of extra capacity put into the local industry in that sense as well. So I want to jump over to you, Cal, now. Maybe you could tell the story of your project, because in some way I see this as being a kind of overarching framing for the work. I don't know if other people get what I mean by that, but it's not a moving image. It's a design project rather than a media project, you know. But it's very much about setting up the idea of a system that could accommodate lots of the different things that we've been talking about in some ways. So can you tell us a bit about where you started from, about City ID, and where the project's got to now?
Yeah, thanks, John. So City ID, we're probably most well known for pioneering the legible city movement in Bristol and for the wayfinding systems that we developed. So the blue signs that you'll see around Bristol with the maps on them. We've always had an interest in digitizing those assets and understanding how we can present more local information on a level that is communicated by the city to the city. So the Digital Placemaking project allowed us to work alongside Calvium to take our static mapping, digitize it in a scalable format and to a level of detail that other ubiquitous platforms can't. So we're able to map the pedestrian space because it's all drawn from royalty-free aerial photography. And then the first use case of which we wanted to explore was how do you reveal the cultural activity that happens in the city, in its venues, but also in public space. So how do you communicate the busker who's in the street doing a little performance, or the gig that's going at Thekla? So kind of making the invisible events that happen around us more visible. So we went through a method of collating all this information and data and representing it through this interface that Calvium realized for us, where you're able to set a time window and find out what's happening here and now around you based on your preferences. So that's kind of where PopMap started for us.
So the clock which we saw in the film, I think, is a really beautiful bit of interface design, and I hope that more people get a chance to experience it. You know, the idea that you can say basically what's going on around me in the next half an hour, and it will give you walking distances. I think that idea about walking distances is really important in the map because it starts to reintroduce the idea of the kind of walkable, scalable, convivial, people-centered city that's not about cars. You know, so can you say a bit more about the way that clock interface works, because it's a really beautiful bit of design.
Yeah. So it's this application is less about the pre-planning of what you're going to do. It's more about the here and now. It's more about, oh, I've got an hour at lunchtime. What can I do around me? What's close? Can I burn 50 calories and do a 20-minute walk, or you know, that sort of thing? My bus isn't for another 2 hours. I need a pram accessible place that's got a toilet that my kids can use. You know, so while the first thing was about those cultural events, we're sort of understanding how the platform can be used to highlight other things as well in a time-sensitive manner. So that's where this clock interface started. And you can set the different windows from where you are now to 4 hours time, just within the next 24 hours only. And then all of these pins will pop up, highlighting the buildings that they're in or highlighting the pedestrian space that these events are taking place in.
So why is this different to Google Street Map or OpenStreetMap?
That is a great question. Google, OpenStreetMap, Apple, they're mapping the whole world. Like, to the things that you see on those mapping platforms, you're seeing them because that person's paid to be visible on this map. Whereas this one is a lot more accurate because we've drawn from aerial photography. We can be as accurate as plotting where the steps are, where the accessible entrances are of buildings, where the non-cobbled routes are. But we can also give a bit more agency to the city and authenticity. So this is information being communicated by Bristol, for Bristol, to Bristol, as opposed to a global giant in Silicon Valley communicating what's being paid to be communicated.
Yeah, that's very important, I think. So the idea that all the maps that exist, that are Google and Apple and so on, and not OpenStreetMap so much, but Google and Apple, I mean, the things that appear in them are there because they've been commodified already. So that's really important to think about. This is a map of the living city, not the commodified city. So,
and all the mapping platforms are highlighted. They're aimed at road users, so they're mapping people through roads. You don't see the routes or the big pedestrian spaces that you're going to be walking through, or the steps or the ramps. You know.
So guess that naturally follows on to Joseph Wilk's project, your company, Little Lost Robot and Stupid Cities. First of all, the title, Joe. Why is it called? Where did you come from? Stupid Cities.
Yeah, so it's really a play on the idea of smart cities, as in there was a lot of talk of how technology could be interjected into our public spaces and somehow that would make our cities smart. And really what I was trying to say with Stupid Cities is that actually technology is stupid, listening to people is smart. And so actually having a people-centric approach to how we design our public spaces is what I would consider a smart city and not the technology.
Yeah, thanks. So you set up a sort of a system for crowdsourcing the documentation of risk and microaggression in urban design. Can you say a bit more about what form that takes? What does that finish up as a website that people can use, or as an app?
Yeah, so it's effectively a mobile app and website that you can use on the go. It's very much orientated towards capturing at the moment a microaggression occurs at. And I think a big important part of this, as well as like gathering a data set that effectively can be used to influence council design and building planning position, it's also about the individual's experience of that microaggression and how access problems hinder people from participating in society because the barriers, psychological barriers, become too great. So there's an important emphasis on the fact that often access problems are passive, as in you experience it and you just move on and it just lives in your head. By having this app where you can take your photo, put it on the map, put on market, you're kind of taking a positive action and expressing something, and then also sharing it with a community of people. And then, you know, you can see what other people have marked. You can then, in part of our workshops, have conversations with other people, and that kind of like building allies, building communities, and trying to help and support each other. Because I think everyone who experiences disability knows what the problems are, but being able to talk about them is I think, the key part of our project.
So it's a kind of community data sourcing program in a sense, as well as a design program. It's the building the community is a really important part of that, yeah?
Yeah. I think it's something we learned through the process of the project that initially, as a technologist, my idea was very much around using kind of digital tools to create these maps. And I think what we learned is the technology and the digital placemaking is almost not the important part. The important part is that these tools provide a conversation with people about how they relate to their body, the environment, and the spaces they exist in. And that I kind of discovered is kind of a path to advocacy, is really what we've created, of people getting engaged with challenging the systemic unfairness in our laws and our society that creates the concept of disability.
How interesting. So it's a convening process in a way. In the film, there's something I wanted to ask you. There's a little orange box that comes up in the film. And I think I know what that is, but could you explain, because I don't think it comes across necessarily in the film. Could you say something a bit about that bit of the tech that you were working on as well?
Yeah, so that's a IMU kind of a gyroscope and accelerometer and GPS unit. And we went through various prototypes using depth cameras, simple Arduino chips. And really what we were interested in was when you attach these little Velcro boxes onto a wheelchair, that you can start to gather data about the journey, the surfaces, the gradients. And specifically what became really important in that box was measuring the gradients of dipped curbs. It was overwhelmingly the most important thing. So we kind of went in not knowing what we would measure, but that actually was something people were really interested in. And as well as using these boxes as kind of data capture units, they were also about creative fun and reclaiming technology in the experience of disability. So we used them in our workshops to create visualizations and musical and visual effects, especially Face by Moving, where we examined the code that we did to do that. People could mess around with it and explore for themselves and gain a sense this wasn't just a black box that you plug on a wheelchair that's somehow going to like solve your problems, and actually it's your tool. And how do you want to use it? Do you want to open it up and look inside, and let's do what you imagine it to do?
Thanks, Joe. So finally, just coming to Ben and your project, which was a collaboration between Crack Magazine and Landmark. Again, something that we may have thought of for years. How could you embed the cultural history of a place into the place? And you've done it, Ben. This is amazing. I'm so excited about what you've achieved, because it's one of those things that's been in our visionary consciousness for so long. And actually, you've done it, and you've done it in Bristol. So tell us a bit about where that project started and where you've arrived at now.
Yeah, so as you said, it's a collaboration between us and Landmark. We actually first worked together in 2018 on a project for where we put Aphex Twin, who's a pioneering electronic artist, in kind of like augmented reality around different locations, and conversations carried on from there. And we were like, how can we use the Landmark technology and the kind of our desire to create really engaging content into something that could exist in the city forever? And yeah, so Everything's Music was born from that idea, and the aim was to focus on the cities we knew to start with, which was Bristol and Bath, and it was to kind of tell the stories in Bristol and Bath's music history through location-based content, from archive recordings, footage and posters, to newly commissioned podcasts, 2D holograms, and 3D augmented reality assets. In addition, we really wanted to see a way where we can support artists and venues and collectives and record labels through this platform, and how we can give visibility to the work they've done. And so that was our ambition. And alongside that, we really wanted to see how we could use technology to make it immersive and engaging while not making it too challenging for someone to use or understand. So Landmark's platform is a web browser platform, so it's something you don't download. It's something that you can access through your smartphone on Safari or Google Chrome, which was amazing because it means that people don't have to download huge data files on the apps. They can access it very easily. And so we looked at different ways we could use technology to really bring these stories to life. And we did quite a lot of R&D and kind of different ways we could do this. And also in the background, the web browser technology that's kind of around at the moment is progressing at quite a rapid rate. And so we're always aware of kind of having to update and thinking about how we could potentially use progressive web apps and all these different things. And so, yeah, we've kind of like got to a really good stage with it. It's definitely not finished yet, but we're going to be releasing it at the end of May, which is really exciting. And there's going to be 250 stories on the map across the two cities. That's ranging from stories from the 1930s all the way through to contemporary artists, and making sure that we've tried to cover as many different genres of music as possible. Bristol, in particular, has got a very well-trodden musical path that everyone describes as the Bristol sound, and that is definitely populated in the map. But we've also really tried to go out of our way to make sure that there's all the other stories which have never really seen the light of day are shown on this map. And yeah, I'll list off a couple of things that we've done, which is kind of the technical focus side of things. So we've got two 2D hologram tours, one with Big Jeff, who's a huge kind of like figure in the music scene. He goes to 7 gigs every week. We've got some photogrammetry scans of sound systems from St. Paul's that we've worked with Camera in Bath. And we've also created about 40 podcasts, which is really anything from like short anecdotes to kind of longer form 30-minute podcasts. And we've built a custom built 4D like audio reactive visualizer. And there's something which I think is...
Tell us about the 4D reactive visualizer. What is that?
Yeah, so that is, when we were kind of working on the project, we all love looking at old photos and old posters and things. And I was like, that's great, but all these young people who are artists who actually don't have these kind of nostalgic pieces of content to give us, what can we do to really make their content really engaging? And so we came up with this idea of creating it's a 4D asset that you can see in augmented reality that reacts to those artists' music. So yeah, we've got about 15 of them on the platform, and it's all coded to those specific locations, and it's just a really nice way for us to give those artists something really engaging to share themselves, and also to bring their songs to life, because that's the future generation of music coming out of the city, and they're really important.
Okay, yeah, I get it. Yeah, it's an enormous amount of content. I mean, it really is an enormous amount of content that you've created. I'm so impressed, and I'm really looking forward to being able to take those walks, and that moment where in the film where you're seeing that beautifully rendered sound system in the car park at the Malcolm X Centre, which of course is a very familiar sight. Around Carnival time, there's always a sound system there, and it looked bizarrely realistic. It was kind of quite surreal, that moment for me. So yeah, very excited to sort of see that when it comes out. It's an immense project. Can you say something about the way in which that fed into Crack Magazine's COVID experience, and how the development work supported the magazine at a moment where it wasn't able to be produced in its former form?
Yeah, so we had to, once COVID hit, we obviously had to stop the print publication of the magazine. We normally, it's like a free paper magazine that we do monthly, and so that stopped, and was a huge revenue cut for us. And so we created a digital version of the magazine, but this project really allowed us to look at how not only we could keep staff employed, but also actually be able to work on how Crack can create a new business model through this as well. This is we're hoping to be able to really do this in other cities, and yeah, it was great. It was challenging at times, definitely, but I think one of the main things that we kind of felt came out of it is that, I think actually almost this is kind of relevant for all of the different prototypes, is this is almost the perfect time for these prototypes to happen for us. People being able to move around cities again in May and June, but maybe not wanting to be able to go to like club nights or shows yet. This is a way for them to have some cultural experience, move around the city, do it on their own time, and restrictions ease, and hopefully this is kind of a middle ground between life going back to full normal and what we've been through.
Yeah, I think that moment where the magazine was able to offer these digital services and products as an additional part of their offer, if you went behind the paywall, once you had to subscribe to get it, that felt really important to me in thinking about that nasty word pivot, and how people, and that was a key pivot, I think, in my understanding of how people would be resilient through the COVID crisis.
Yeah, definitely.
We're going to start to take some audience questions in a minute, but before we do that, I just want to jump in on all of you really and say, to talk about where you're going next, because as you know, all of these investments are made on the basis of producing some sort of minimum viable project. What's their prototypes, and so we do very much understand them as the beginning of a journey rather than the end. So I'd like to hear from you all about where you're planning to go next with this work, and what your onward journey is, as they say on railways. Michele, what's next for you with Sevenset and this AR version?
So our project is heavily focused on groups and community. And so unfortunately, because due to the pandemic, we weren't really able to take groups of people out to really explore the prototype in that community way. So the next step for us is to take out some of our focus groups and some local people to experience the tour, do further research and development on the remaining 4 murals to see, again, what cultural elements and what parts of the narratives people would like to see animated, or sounds that they would like to hear. So that is the next phase towards getting it finished. Our aim is to get the AR guided tour completed by summer next year. During this time, what we're also doing is we're also venturing out into virtual technology. Because of the amount of feedback that we did receive from the focus groups that we were able to take out last year, another thing that people really want to see is a virtual reality tour, which is great, because then that means that it will be more accessible to people who have disabilities. Previously, what we did was we produced a map. So people who wanted, because the thing about the guided tours, if I just go back a little bit, is the conversations that are had between diverse group of people. And we didn't want people with disabilities to necessarily miss out on that. So what we did as a kind of a plaster, if you like, was to provide maps so that they could meet with the group at each location. So that will still be available, and we're still looking at ways of improving accessibilities. But as I'm sure Joseph can speak to, not all the roads in St. Paul's are very accessible for people with disabilities. So we're still working on that. But what the virtual reality tool will be able to do, it will be a combination of what we currently are developing in terms of the AR tool, and then providing it on a using virtual technology so if the tours are accessible from any geographical location, which means that schools can use it as part of their in the school setting, and as part of our educational resource. And then people can also access it from the Caribbean, from America, from Asia, wherever. So that's another thing that we're working towards, and hopefully that will also be completed, funding pending, of course, by summer next year. And then what we also have, which is slightly different, but is with the catalyst behind why we applied for this funding, is the existing self-guided art trail app. So what we're working on is expanding that history throughout the city and making connections between the Black Bristolian history and the rest of the city, and not just limiting it to St. Paul's.
That is such an amazing and beautiful and ambitious trajectory.
Thank you.
I mean, and I really hope that we can work with you on supporting you on bringing that forward. I mean, I'm just thinking that if you got to that place, I think it would be one of the first places in the world to have that kind of representation in that format in a city. I think it would be a really unique first for the city, for Bristol and so on. So yeah, look forward to seeing that very much. I mean, I guess Joe, what's next for you? Where are you going with this? With this project next? Where's it taken you to that perhaps Little Lost Robot, your company, might be able to develop from?
Yeah, so we've just recently been awarded funding by Unlimited and partnering with the South Bank to really continue what we started with this project. And I think what we did in Stupid Cities is we gathered a lot of data and we built the community network, and we really understood the concept of the microaggressions in our spaces. And now going forward, what we're going to do is step more into the augmented reality realm and use the treads of wheelchairs and wheel-based mobility devices to create provocative performance-based street art indoors in places where disability is marginalized. So for example, I plan to digitally graffiti the floor of the Tate Modern Reactor Hall with a group of wheelchair users to express the representation of the Tate Modern and disability interests. So that's the future advocacy and art and continuing Stupid Cities going forward.
The turbine hall action sounds wild. I want to be there. It sounds like a great bit of guerrilla intervention. Thank you. That's brilliant. Cal, where are you? PopMap's a big project, right? It's got a lot of potential and a lot of export potential and all sorts of places that might be interested in doing it. Where have you got to with thinking about what that trajectory is now?
Well, when COVID hit, all of the events that we had collated and information that we were putting into the app all got cancelled. So but it did open up some new use cases, because a lot of communication was being sent out on a national level of what people can and can't do during COVID. Not a lot was being spoken about on a hyper local level. So simple things as what's open, what's closed, where can I go, what do I need to pre-book this, do I need to wear a mask? So that got us thinking. We've been engaging with stakeholders directly in the city. So we've spoken directly to about 100 different destinations in Bristol to understand exactly what sort of information they want to communicate to their customers. Simple things that you would expect there to be, like hand sanitizer, but people were still calling the venues saying, are you going to be supplying hand sanitizer? So we were trying to understand exactly what information a venue or Bristol itself would want to communicate to its citizens which streets have been closed off for social distancing, which pavements are wide enough to keep 2 meters apart. So that's kind of where we've started taking it.
Really interesting. So it's got a sort of like a crisis response mechanism built into it.
Exactly.
I want to start incorporating some questions from the audience in a minute. So very quickly, Ben, what's your next stage?
Yep. So over the next month, we're just the platform's going to be ready probably middle of next week. Next month, just testing, lots and lots of testing, and then the platform actually goes live on May the 28th. Build a really good case study, gather all the data we kind of need to learn from that, and then take it to other cities. And then using Bristol and Bath to really as our kind of like R&D centre to be able to continue working and challenging how kind of experiences are based on web browsers. That'll be everything from kind of volumetric capture using 5G to spatial audio to AI-driven content, and then also kind of looking at how we can make it more inclusive by accessibility routes and multi-user generated experiences as well.
So really, for Crack, it's a whole shift into a whole other realm of digital production that wasn't really there before. Is kind of what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah, yeah.
So do any of you have any plans? This is from Sarah Dedzio. Does any of you have any plans to try and internationalize what you've been doing or take it to places or markets abroad? Yeah, Cal and Ben are both nodding. Cal.
Yeah, so while the PopMap prototype is based in Bristol, we do have clients all over the world, and with that detailed level of mapping, there's no reason why something like this couldn't be implemented in San Francisco or closer to home in the UK.
And Ben, do you think you'll be able to export the musical history of a city to other places?
Yeah, so we're in talks at the moment with some people in America about doing it in some cities over there. I think for us, we'll kind of understand how possible it is really once we've done this case study. But yeah, our ambition is to do a couple more cities in the UK and then try and do something international.
Fantastic. There's a question here for Joe from Lottie Webb. I'm inspired by the accessibility data you've collated for Stupid Cities. It would be wonderful to see this crowdsourced data set of features and challenges and provide more topographic detail to mapping and navigation. It's a question about how, which is common to all your projects in different ways, about how you crowdsource the data that you need to make the thing fly. But in particular, Joe, for you, how is this being made available and how could it be expanded?
Yeah, so I think we've always had the plan with our data set to go through a platform like Wheelmap, which provides kind of a fusion between Google Maps and access for buildings. And we provide our data as a feed to Wheelmap. So I think rather than trying to build many access tools as our data set, we can provide that to access platforms that can use specifically around permanent features. I think also part of our kind of exposure is we'll be showing all our mapped work in Bath at our gallery space in Milsom Street with all the maps, because I think a lot of this data needs to be seen by the general public, by people just to look at and understand and explore those lived experiences, because the digital tooling, as we discovered in our project, will also exclude, because there is a digital divide, and a lot of our map making never went digital. We just sent people maps in the post and they filled them in, and that was a beautiful and lovely way of them exploring their experiences of that space. So I think we need to take it outside of digital, not just rely on digital mapping. In terms of how this data is propagated, I think the only important thing that I want to persist is that this is a disability experience, a disability-driven collection of data. And I almost don't want platforms like Google or Apple to somehow take ownership and pretend that they are the ones who have solved this problem. This is an advocacy project, and this is us shouting. And I would rather they listen to us than we somehow have our data kind of consumed into their platforms.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I think it's a theme that's running through the whole day, really, about the relationship between technology, people, communities, and places, that actually the technology without the right relationships between people is pretty worthless, and that's one of the points that I think in all of these projects. There's a question for you, Michele, which is a tech question actually, from Naomi Smythe. Are you thinking, when you get to your VR incarnation, are you thinking of web XR or headset VR? And also, how would you replicate the idea of conversations in VR? And you talked about the interpersonal stuff being really important on the tours. Have you thought in design terms about how that might feature in a virtual environment yet? You may not have got there, but maybe you can speculate.
Yeah, that is something that we are thinking about and considering. We are planning on starting the R&D for the VR tour sort of this summer. And there's a lot of things that we need to take into consideration. I'm not the tech person, Boom Satsuma is, but as far as we know, we should be able to produce something where people can still have that sort of online interaction, communicate with each other, sort of like a live experience whilst doing the VR tour, or whether it would be sort of like in a classroom setting, for example, where children will experience the tour individually or maybe in partners and then feedback as a class. So we're looking at the various ways in which we can produce something that will hit all those boxes, because that is a really important part of our work and one of our project outcomes.
Yeah, very good point. It doesn't have to be a reproduction of on-tour conversation. You can build conversation in different ways, right? In different, using different platforms and different groups, and finding ways that data can be shared together to produce conversation. I understand, yeah. A final question from the floor out there. Have any of you been engaging with the idea of the 15-minute city? This is a question from Joe Lansdowne. Does the 15-minute city mean anything to you as a concept?
Yeah, so I think we're aware of it. I don't think we've been engaged directly to do anything for it, but I think it's an interesting concept and definitely something that PopMap lends itself to.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a plan to implement it, this idea in Paris, but it's very much about the idea of reintroducing the walkable city, and the localized city, the neighborhood city, back to the neighborhoods rather than the car city, essentially. Right. Well, I guess we're nearly on our time, so I want to just thank you all for being with us this morning and for sharing your journeys with us a little bit. There's so much more that I'd love to talk about here, not least how we move forward with crowdfunding some of this stuff and how we might actually begin to put Bristol and Bath on the map as one of the places in the world that really does understand this kind of grassroots approach to digital placemaking. And has done some really, I think we've done some really pioneering work in shifting the dialogue from a sort of top-down to a bottom-up initiative in this project. And I'm very, very proud of that. So I'd like to find ways to carry that forward, and I'm open to that conversation. We're open to that conversation, anybody who wants to listen. So thank you so much for working with us on this and helping us as a project to get this far. And I hope we can continue to work with you, the 4 projects that are here, to make sure that actually you get further down the road roads that you're already on. We have a break now till 2 o'clock, I believe. Yeah, till 2 o'clock. Lunch break till 2. So come back at 2 o'clock and find out some more of the amazing things that we've been doing so far in the last couple of years on the Bristol and Bath Creative R&D Programme. Thank you, Cal. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Michele. Thank you, Joe. It's been great. Cheers. Thanks a lot. Bye for now.